What is up? We are back with another edition of the Recruit Reaction, but it's the last Recruit Reaction of the season. Can you believe that this is week 13? Welcome in, welcome in. I'm live from Nashville, Tennessee. You guys let me know, comment section below, where are we watching from tonight? Tell me, let me know. Boy, what a weekend. What a weekend. Here we are. It's rivalry weekend, and boy, has it lived up to the hype. We're going to start with some Ohio State, Michigan. We're going to talk Texas A&M. We're going to get a little bit into the Florida State, Florida game. Also, Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl. They hosted visitors. USC, Notre Dame had some big-time names on campus. And then, of course, we're going to talk some Colorado Buffaloes. But how are you guys doing? Welcome in. This is week 13. It's a little hard for me. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm still processing week 0, Florida State's loss in Ireland to Georgia Tech. I'm still processing that Florida Gator Miami game that we had open the season. I can't believe that here we are and it's week 13, but hey, somebody's got to do it. And this was rivalry weekend. So we're going to get into it. Let's bring in on 3 national analyst Steve Wiltfong. Steve, I know you're working the phones. I know it's been a busy day, but let's start with this Ohio State-Michigan game. The Wolverines, they stunned the Buckeyes 13-10. Ohio State came in a 20-point favorite, depending on your betting site, and they looked like they were ready to bully Michigan. But, Steve, it was the Wolverines that did the bullying, so let's talk a little Wolverine recruiting. We got Bryce Underwood on the board. And ever since Bryce Underwood flipped his commitment from LSU to Michigan just 2 weeks ago, things have been heating up for Michigan. How are you feeling about Wolverines tonight?
Shout out to Jay Frost watching in Kokomo. We got some Hoosiers tuned into the Recruit Reaction show tonight. The Big Ten title game going to be in Indianapolis next week. Michigan will not be there this year, but they want to be there next year. They're recruiting a top 10 class. They're going to be very active in the portal. And they are going to head into this portal season, this off season, with as much momentum as any program on the trail. You talk about flipping Bryce Underwood, getting this big win against Ohio State on the road, getting these extra bowl practices, beating Northwestern last week. And then certainly the portal, they're hosting former Indiana receiver Donovan McCulley this weekend. Pete Nakos and I predicting Michigan to land Donovan McCulley. McCulley told me the other day, told me Wednesday, if this visit goes well, he could see himself jumping in. He also said, I know Michigan's never going to have another down year again. And talked about just the history and tradition of the program. I think he ends up in the class for Michigan from a transfer portal perspective. And then also logged in on 3 RPM today, Josh, for Travis Moten. He's an edge rusher from Kentucky. He took an official visit to Michigan this past Sunday and Monday. He's deciding on Thursday during the 3-day early signing period between Michigan, Virginia, and Texas Tech. I like where that's going for Michigan right now. Again, top 10 class, some major targets still out there for the Wolverines, some guys they're looking to flip, guys like 5-star offensive lineman Ty Haywood, who our EJ Holland was out to see Ty Haywood play today. EJ Holland from the Wolverine. He reports Ty Haywood's not going to sign during the early signing period. Michigan is the biggest threat to Alabama. Jordan Young, I have an on 3 RPM in favor of Michigan to flip Jordan Young from Clemson. So big things happening. I think that they'll circle back on some other recruitments they lost. Maybe a Grayson Littleton who's committed to Texas. Alex Graham committed to Colorado is still out there. They're trying to flip Bradley Gompers, a 4-star linebacker from Duke. They're in the mix there as they battle Penn State. So a lot happening. Nathaniel Owusu Boateng, they're in the top 2 with Colorado 4 down the stretch. Obviously, they've been in the mix for Derek Meadows. That looks like that's trending towards Alabama, but that's been an ebb and flow recruitment. So we'll see if Michigan can maybe garner some more momentum there, but he's trending heavy to Alabama on 3 RPM. That's about the only bad news going on right now if you're following the maize and blue on the field and on the trail.
Unbelievable weekend. Unbelievable second half of the season, really, for Michigan, not just on the recruiting trail, but also just beating Ohio State today. What a win. We kind of breezed through that Ty Haywood news that he told EJ Holland was down in Texas. He was at the playoff game and spoke to Ty Haywood after. Now, Steve, I mean, to me, is the writing on the wall here with five-star offensive tackle Ty Haywood, who's currently committed to Alabama?
Well, I think it's obvious that Michigan's in the thick of it. If he's not signing with Alabama during the early signing period, it's because he wants to see what's still out there and where his recruiting process can take him. I am of the understanding that Texas Tech took a nice swing at Ty Haywood. He was not interested. So I think that he is still looking for as big a stage as you can find in college football, with a major track record of development at his position. Certainly NIL is a factor. And I think that Michigan has a lot going for it in that recruitment, as Ty Haywood choosing not to sign, or says he won't sign. Now, look, Josh, we've seen kids say, hey, I'm not going to sign, and then they still sign with the program they've long been committed to.
We have seen that.
So Alabama still has time to change that. But today he told E.J. Holland he's not signing. The buzz around Michigan making a push for Ty Haywood has been coming along for a while, and he continues to entertain the Wolverines. And we've heard other schools take a shot, and it has been to no avail. But Michigan's still in the mix.
Yeah, and winning matters. I mean, we're watching what happens when you win. Michigan didn't only win on the field, they've been winning recruitments. Now, Jordan Young committed right here on the On3 Recruits channel earlier this month. I think it was November 2nd. Jordan Young, it was a very emotional scene. If you guys were here, you guys remember it if you were watching. I mean, Jordan Young broke down before choosing Clemson. I know it was a tough decision because he visited Michigan the week before that decision. What do you think happened with Jordan Young?
Well, I just think that, again, it was such a close decision for him. He was also really high on NC State at times, but Michigan, a program that he took his last official visit to, I want to say, and just had a fantastic experience there. Loves the program. The opportunity to be part of a legendary program, he said in the past, contribute to the legacy, the coaches, the team, the culture, the resources are amazing. He talked about Michigan athletically and academically, and Michigan circled back. They haven't given up on these recruitments. They're not going to win all these kids that they lost round one on, but Sharon Moore, he is going to be a head coach that is very active on the recruiting trail. It's going to resonate on down, but he's going to have a personal relationship with these guys, with these top targets. And you see how hard the team's playing for him. Look, this has been a tough season. If they could go back and do it again, they would have went into the portal for a quarterback, and they're not 6-6.
Right.
But they've, or 7-5, excuse me. But they've played through it. They've played hard every week. They've had some tough losses. They picked themselves up off the mat every week. Nothing has changed with Michigan's culture. Their quarterback room, they're going to look to get that right. They have Bryce Underwood, the number one player in the country, committed. I still wouldn't be surprised if they went into the portal for a one-year veteran guy next year. And then no more quarterback issues for the Wolverines as long as they can stay healthy in that room. But they're playing hard. They're playing ferocious. Sharon Moore is a player's coach, has a good staff around him. For them to go into Ohio State and win for a fourth time in a row against the Buckeyes. And you talk about, look, man, Ryan Day, Ohio State, you don't like losing to Michigan. It's your rival, man. I get it. Jim Harbaugh, I think, lost the first 5 or 6 to Ohio State. Those were all championship contending teams for Michigan that they lost to. The last 3 years, I believe Michigan was something like 38-3 and only one loss in the Big Ten the last 3 years. So Ohio State losing to Michigan in those 3 years prior, like, it sucks. But I mean, Michigan was really, really good. This was a huge upset this year. Michigan going into the shoe, 13-10, winning around at the line of scrimmage, not leaving opportunities out there on the field when they were there, doing enough to win. This is as tough a loss as I've seen for Ohio State, and obviously the John Cooper era. But I was pretty young then, so this is the toughest Ohio State loss of my adult life.
All right, Michigan sitting there at number 8 in the recruiting rankings. Guys, Michigan fans, talk to Steve and I. Who is the next Michigan Fong bomb? Where will it come from? You guys put your predictions, comment section below. The next time Wilt Fong RPM somebody to the Wolverines, who's it going to be? Let me know. Comment section below. All right, Steve, we got to talk Ohio State. Now, they didn't win the game, but they did have some top recruits on campus today, namely Naeem Offord. Now, we've been talking about Naeem Offord's recruitment for a while. I'll be honest with you, Steve. I wasn't expecting him to make this visit. I thought he was not going to make it, but there was confirmation that he was sitting in the student section. Naeem Offord was there, but was Jakeem Stewart there? And what do you make of Offord stepping on campus?
Well, look, Naeem Offord's been committed to Ohio State since February. Just because there's a whole lot of smoke about Auburn doesn't mean that he doesn't have love for the Buckeyes. He does. Tim Walton, his lead recruiter, Coach Duhart, Coach Knowles. Ohio State's a place that he believes can get the best out of them, and it's a program that's always in the conversation for championships and players getting drafted high. And that still doesn't change after today. This visit was on his radar for a while. He wanted to get up for games earlier in the year. His brother plays at Tulane. He's got a younger brother that plays. It's not easy for the family to just pick up and get to Ohio State like it is for Auburn. I'm not surprised he made the visit. My on 3 RPM is obviously on Auburn. So I think that my intel favors Auburn down the stretch. You got Florida swinging in here. You got Oregon swinging in here. You got Ohio State trying to keep them in the fold. He's been to 4 Auburn games, been to practice, and believes in the trajectory of Auburn, and the family likes the coaching staff. So we'll see what happens in this recruitment. But I mean, just because there's buzz about him going to Auburn doesn't mean he doesn't have love for Ohio State and getting back up there, seeing if they can rekindle that magic. It's been a while since he's been up there. Look, it's a tough locker room.
It'll be a tough time to rekindle that magic. I think
tough locker room to be in after the game.
Yeah.
How do the coaches respond to the players that are on campus? Because look, it's easier said than done, but you're turning the page. College football playoff.
Yeah.
Next year, you don't want to lose this game next year. These are the players that are help you win these games next year. I mean. And stay off the message boards. I'll tell you what, the diehards are pissed.
They are. They're going in. Well, we'll see what happens. But I think for the reasons that you stated, why it was so hard for Naeem Offord to make it to Columbus this year, I think that those play into the reasons why he's going to flip. Like you said, it's hard to make it. The family make it as well. These other teams that are recruiting him that you mentioned besides Oregon are all kind of located near him. So we're going to see what happens with Naeem Offord. Now, we got to talk David Sanders. I know David Sanders didn't make it in this week, didn't need to make it in for Ohio State to have a shot. But Steve, what is the latest buzz on number 1 overall tackle, David Sanders, as we sit, about 4 days from signing day?
I got a text about 6:30 in the morning that he was not going to make the visit this weekend. Our Pete Nakos had a story this morning saying that final decision was made on Friday night. I spoke to a source Saturday morning, a little later, that said, I just wanted to make sure they didn't change their mind again and get in the car and go up to them. Right. So look, I think he's going to stick with Tennessee, but that visit to Ohio State last week, there was some momentum starting to build for the Buckeyes. Things were happening in that recruitment that had hit the Sanders family reevaluating some options, but I think that visit to Ohio State was motivation for Tennessee to tie some things up on their end and get it done. And I think David's always wanted to be a Vol. They've recruited him since 8th grade. When he committed to them in the summer, it's the only staff he's talked to. He knows the commits so well. He's been there a bunch. But in the new era of college football recruiting, there's dialogue and lingo and language and all kinds of things. And when you make your commitment, are those things the same at the end of the process? And so I think it was just getting things aligned again for Sanders and the Vols. And look, Ohio State was a place he liked a lot. They were the close runner-up and getting back on campus with Ohio State. It was a great visit last weekend. and a great experience, and certainly a place where he could see himself also being successful. And the family's got so many great relationships, but not visiting. Tennessee seems to that dialogue seems to be getting stronger again. Not that it was ever like not good, you know what I'm saying? But again, getting everything buttoned up with the Vols, and then certainly Tennessee, they're headed to the college football playoff after their win at Vanderbilt today.
So you feel like Tennessee did what they needed to do over the course of that from the visit until now, to where you feel like it's trending back in that direction?
Well, that's what it's sounding like, talking to some sources with knowledge of the recruitment.
Okay. And no Jakeem Stewart. Does that mean that Ohio State is officially out for Jakeem?
Yeah, and we talked about that on Whip Around earlier in the week. We weren't expecting Jakeem Stewart at Ohio State this weekend. He was at Oregon last weekend for his second visit of Oregon for the fall. Coming out of that visit, USC looked like the leader still. He took his official visit to USC a couple weekends ago. From on the field opportunity to off the field opportunity, resources, and infrastructure, USC has grabbed a lot of momentum in this recruitment. But we said, hey, I wouldn't be surprised if he popped up again at LSU or USC one more time before deciding. He did not pop up at USC today. That would have been his third straight West Coast trip in 3 weekends. But he was at LSU earlier this week. Shea Dixon from the Bengal Tiger confirming that he was there. And I think around LSU, optimism was pretty low on their position coming into the week. But getting Stewart and his camp back on campus on Wednesday, they're going to make this recruitment at the very least interesting leading up to the early signing period next week.
Yeah, it's getting really interesting because right now, Ohio State sits at number 3 in the rankings. At one time, they were number 1. They were number 1 for a while, Ohio State. Michigan is now sitting at number 8. Michigan deals a big blow to Ohio State on the field, and I have a sneaking suspicion that Michigan could end up finishing higher than Ohio State in the recruiting rankings. Now, I'm not saying that Michigan's going to have a top 5 class or a top 3 class. No. I think the way that it could play out is if Ohio State loses a Naeem Alford, if they lose a TJ Alford, the linebacker he flips to Miami, couple that with Michigan, so now Ohio State maybe slides to 5 or 6. And now Michigan adds a Ty Haywood and a Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, 2 top 50 players. I mean, you could see Michigan slide to number 5, Ohio State slide to 6 or something like that. And in the end, it could be Michigan over Ohio State. Let me know what you guys think. Put it in the comment section below. Does Ohio State or Michigan finish higher in the recruiting rankings? Let me know. Comment section below. All right, let's talk a little Texas A&M in Texas. The big news happened on Friday with Texas A&M flipping Brady Hart from Michigan in a reclass to 2025. This was crazy. Steve, as we wait for Texas A&M and Texas to kick off, and we're going to go over some of the 5-star flips that are on campus right now, but let's rewind it one day to Friday. Brady Hart flipping from Michigan. I mean, obviously the Bryce Underwood news can cause some, maybe looking around, but A&M, how were they able to pull this off, and how did they get the reclassification done?
Well, I got a call on Thanksgiving that was in the works, that Brady Hart was going to flip his commitment from Michigan to Texas A&M. When Bryce Underwood flipped from LSU to Michigan and Hussan Longstreet flipped from Texas A&M to USC, Brady Hart was the prospect that they pivoted to. And Brady Hart was looking at reclassifying for Michigan. And we kind of talked about it on an Inside Scoop or a Whip Around in the past, that he's only 2 credits away from graduating from high school this semester. So he's in position to reclassify. Texas A&M was a place that he visited in the spring and loved it, and they were one of the front runners for him. He also had a great visit to LSU. But A&M able to get it done, and they have him on an official visit this weekend amongst what is a massive 5-star weekend at Texas A&M.
Let's get into it. Texas versus Texas A&M, and we got some 5-star flips on campus. Wow, look at this. 2 offensive tackles in Lamont Rogers and Michael Fasusi. Both of them are from the state of Texas. Then you got running back. We have him listed as a running back. He's a wide receiver. Jerome Miles, another 5-star. And Jerome Miles is from the state of Utah, committed to USC. Let's start at the top with Lamont Rogers. This is one that Texas A&M, Texas A&M have been working both these in-state offensive tackles. So what do you got?
Well, obviously, my on-3 RPM is on Texas A&M for Lamont Rogers. I think this is his 4th game on campus. Chad Simmons also likes where the Aggies stand here. But he's got to do it, right? So we'll see what happens there, but still like Texas A&M for Lamont Rogers. And I've had him on flip watch. Like I thought it was going to already happen, and those dates have passed. So we'll see what happens again this weekend. Michael Fasusi, a lot of buzz that he could stick with Oklahoma. I think A&M was the runner-up the first time around. Great relationship with Coach Cushing, the offensive line coach. He's done a lot of Zooms with Coach Adam Cushing, just talking X's and O's and player development and things of that nature leading up to his first commitment. Likes the culture Mike Elko's put in place there. This is his 2nd weekend in a row watching Texas. He was at the Texas game last week. So Texas with the chance to just do it on the field in front of Michael Fasusi over these last 2 weeks of the season. Jerome Miles, I got a text earlier today that said they thought Jerome Miles was going to flip to A&M. I checked around with some other sources. Sounds like there's still some positivity around USC that they'll keep them in the fold. I think around College Station, there's just some optimism. So we'll see. I could see Jerome Miles in this class. He was at the opener against Notre Dame. Now he's at the finale against the Longhorns. Their 2 biggest games of the season.
Is Texas A&M the biggest threat to flip Jerome Miles?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard any other program. So unless you got something I'm overlooking.
Well, I just remember he was a big-time commitment when they landed him. He kind of burst onto the scene, being from Utah, got elevated to a 5-star. So just hadn't heard much from him since that commitment to USC.
I think maybe Colorado was a program mentioned at one point for Jerome Miles.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, but no, A&M's the only one I'm looking at right now. And again, text earlier today to keep an eye out for the Aggies, but that's just one source. So I'm trying to get some more on that.
Yeah. All right. More flip targets on campus. Want to get your opinion on a couple of these guys. You got Zion Williams, who everybody's been trying to flip from LSU, defensive lineman. Keelan Moses, who's committed to Auburn. Sorry. He's committed to Auburn. And then Nick Towson.
Keelan Moses committed to LSU.
Oh, Keelan Moses committed to LSU. I don't know. I have in my notes Auburn, but
he's got it all good. That graphic looks good. Look from that.
The graphic is right. My notes are wrong. Nick Towson, Texas. Which one of these 3 do you think Texas has, or Texas A&M, I should say, has the best shot at flipping?
Well, Keelan Moses has been to games already this year. Texas A&M has already offered his little brother and prioritizing him. Jay Bateman loves him. If Mike Elko is pushing for him, I could see him in the Aggies class.
All right. Now, A&M also doing a hell of a job in 2026. We know Brandon Arrington's on campus. Brandon Arrington's the #1 athlete in America. He's from California. He came on this channel a couple weeks ago, said Aggies were his #1 team. What other 2026 studs are at this game, getting ready to watch it?
Yeah, I know A&M has got to be excited to get Arrington back because he was at USC last weekend, and that was a big visit for USC. But A&M's been the leader for a while for Arrington. That's where my on-3 RPM is. Lamar Brown, this is his 4th time in College Station this fall. He said that A&M was by far his leader after his last visit. The on-3 RPM says it's LSU, but Lamar Brown himself has said A&M is by far his leader. Dorian Barney told our colleague Chad Simmons after his first visit to A&M this season that A&M was his leader. Chad Simmons has predicted Barney to A&M today. If A&M is winning this game, I am going to join him on the on-3 RPM. But regardless, the Aggies definitely lead for him. The #1 player in the country. Zion Ely is there. He's been looking forward to this visit for a long time. When he played in Indianapolis a couple months ago, he mentioned A&M as one of his front runners. Obviously, Oregon's the early favorite with Miami, Maryland, Tennessee, some of the other places he's been this fall, Florida as well. But A&M getting their swing with him and Jaira Edwards, his teammate, the number 3 safety in the country. The number 2 edge, Anthony Tank Jones, is there. The number 2 receiver, another 5-star, Tristan Keys, making his second game visit. This is loaded, man. I mean, so many terrific running backs in 26. So the Aggies have a chance to finish with a top 10 class this cycle, and you would have to name them as a program that could finish number 1 in 2026. They're in the top 5 right now, and this is a huge opportunity to really make a big impression on some of these 2026 recruits. And Josh, you and I followed college football for a long time. There are some great atmospheres. A&M at home at night, you put in the top 10, I would think. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And especially, some of these guys are making their first visit. Some of these younger guys are making their first visit to a big game like this.
Right. So let me one up that. So we both like A&M as a top 10 atmosphere at night in college football. Then you rekindle the rivalry against Texas for the first time at night inside Kyle Field. I think that's going to juice it up a little bit more. Kind of like, look, when Florida returned earlier this season for their first home game after backing Billy Napier, people said the swamp felt different. I think Kyle Field's going to be even more charged up tonight.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's going to be
a negative type. Could be one of them Tennessee type. It could be very mean towards the Longhorns tonight in there, or the officials if it's not going the way of the Aggies tonight with the fandom. It's going to be rocking.
All right, Aggie fans, talk to us. You got some 5-star flip targets on campus. What does a win do for this recruiting class? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, let's talk a little Texas recruiting. We got to talk Texas Longhorns, and they are trying to battle for a number 1 class. And heading into the weekend, Steve has a new RPM pick in favor of the Horns. Let's talk about it, Steve. Your newest pick is for linebacker Kellen Wiley, and I did not see this one coming. Why do you think the Horns are trending?
Well, that was actually colleague Chad Simmons putting in the prediction for Kellen Wiley. He took a recent official visit. Miami was considered the competition for Wiley. They are not pushing for him right now. Had a great visit to Austin. I'll be joining that prediction of Kellen Wiley to Texas in the very near future. But good visit, and he's a priority for them, and I think that they ultimately land him.
All right, and if Texas is going to finish, they're going to finish big. Let's talk about 5-star Michael Terry III. We thought maybe he'd come off the board in the summer. Maybe it was going to be the first week of the season. But here we are. It looks like it's going to be December 4th, which is the early signing day. Michael Terry III, Steve, it's kind of gone quiet on his recruitment the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, I haven't. I talked to his dad more recent than that, but it's not like I'm checking in regularly about the pulse. But last I heard, Texas was still the leader, but Nebraska still swinging hard for Michael Terry III, and that's the reason why he's not already publicly committed to the Texas Longhorns. I think that they're Nebraska's given them some things to think about. They brought in Nate Marshall for an official visit, Auburn commit, top 100 player. He was on campus earlier this fall. Javian Hilson, he's at Missouri this weekend, Michigan last weekend. He's been to Syracuse and Pitt this fall. He's been committed to Florida State and Alabama. I hear that recruitment, a lot of infrastructure and resources are going to go into winning that recruitment. And we know Texas has shown that they can win those kind of recruiting battles. So they've had some momentum. That's where the on 3 RPM is, but they certainly got their hands full as they battle for Javian Hilson. Yeah,
that's a really interesting recruitment just because you never know what Hilson's going to do. So let's wrap up this Texas segment with checking in on 5-star wide receiver Jamie French. There's been a lot of rumors around him and UF since he showed up at that visit 2 weeks ago. And just in general, he's from Jacksonville, Florida, which we know is Gator country down in Florida. And he's committed to Texas. So, of course, the Gators, are going to keep on kicking those tires until signing day is done. So what are you hearing right now on 5-star wide receiver Jamie French?
Well, I just know Florida's not losing very many battles right now on guys that have
No.
visited this season at the end that are committed elsewhere. They're flipping everybody. So he was back at Texas last weekend. People around French tell me that they don't know. It was up in the air one way or the other. But the Gators certainly have a lot of momentum now. Texas, they've won this recruitment several times. Ohio State, Alabama, Miami, LSU, they've all been schools that he's been high on, but it just always keeps coming back to Texas.
All right, Texas fans, talk to us. Comment section below. Where does this class finish? How high does it go? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, let's talk a little Florida State recruiting, as one of their prized commits was at Georgia on Friday, but he's back on campus today. Also, a couple of defensive linemen trending in Florida State's direction. We're going to get into it, Steve. Let's talk about Kevin Wynn, the number 9 ranked defensive lineman in America. The Sharks have been circling this commitment for like the last 8 weeks, but Kevin Wynn still holding on to that commitment to FSU. What do you think of this one, as we're just 3 days from signing day?
Well, Florida State, they've been able to hold off suitors for some of their commits. Chase Lofton is one, where at one point it looked like I liked where Nebraska stood to flip him. He told me that FSU's still his front runner. I think that times they felt like around the Florida State program, they've been able to hold off programs for Kevin Wynn. He is not decommitted, so getting him back on campus. I could see him at Georgia. South Carolina's in there. USC looks to be out of it for him, but obviously getting him back on campus this weekend is as big as any prospect that they're hosting for this game. Him and Solomon Thomas, obviously, the 5-star offensive lineman. He was at Florida 2 weeks ago, LSU last week. Back at Florida State this weekend. Now all these guys know who the next OC is, right? Gus Malzahn resigns from his post at UCF. He's going to come to Tallahassee and be the offensive coordinator. He's got a track record, obviously. Who's going to be the offensive line coach? That'll be some questions, but there's a lot of potential flip targets and blue chippers on campus this weekend for Florida State. Tylen Lee is the biggest one, top 100 defensive lineman, currently committed to Ole Miss. I think Florida State leads for LeJesse Harold. He's committed to LSU, or he just decommitted. He decommitted from LSU on Thursday night. My on 3 RPM is for Florida State to land him. Sean Porrett's an offensive lineman that's committed to USF that's going to end up at Florida State or Vanderbilt, in my opinion. Usman Chroma is a guy that they've still been swinging at, and have already had him on campus for a game this year, the Georgia commit. So, look, they're still in the conversation for some good players. They're starting to get their staff in place as they try and have a quick turnaround going into next year, and we'll see what kind of experience some of these guys have here this weekend in Tallahassee. And I think Florida State, they're going to upgrade. Well, upgrade is not the right word. Obviously, they'll make some changes on the field, on the offensive coaching staff, and we'll see if that is an upgrade for them. They were 13-0 last year, so I don't want to act like these coaches that were 2-9 this year, the same guys last year that went 13-0 in the regular season and the ACC title game. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they added some juiced up recruiters to their off-field recruiting department that's going to help them attract some talent right away and then make them be formidable on the trail in 2026.
All right, one more name we got to talk about before we get out of the FSU segment. That's 5-star offensive lineman Solomon Thomas. LSU, UF, they've all been trying to flip him from the Florida State Seminoles. Solomon Thomas is in Tallahassee for this game. Now, he could be watching FSU. He could be watching Florida. Where do you think Solomon Thomas is going to end up in 3 days?
Whoever puts the most infrastructure and resources into that recruitment.
Yeah. Hey, he said it's a business conversation, so we'll see what happens. But Florida State fans, get in the comments section how you feel about this game. It is on as we speak. And how are you feeling about the recruiting class? It was as high as number 3. It's been outside the top 20. Where do you guys think they finish? Let me know. Comment section below. All right, now let's talk some Florida Gators recruiting, because the Gators are hot. They flipped linebacker Ty Jackson. Then it was Muiz Tunkara. Then it was Jahari Medlock. Then it was Byron Lewis. Then it was Jaden Woods. Then on Saturday, it was Tavares Dice. Somebody stop me. Gators inside the top 20 in the On3 industry rankings, and there still could be more to come. Steve, the Gators, they kind of did the reverse of last year. They got out of the gates real hot last year and faded away to the end. Now they started slow, but are nearly unstoppable in the last 10, 20 days. I think that kind of coincides with the Billy Napier vote of confidence, would you say?
Yeah, they're in the top 15 right now on the recruiting trail. They're trying to flip Onis Konanbanny, a defensive back currently committed to Tennessee. Obviously, they're still swinging at Dallas Wilson. They should be commended for even getting Dallas Wilson on campus.
Yes.
He's been committed to Oregon for like 2 years. And I don't know. Look, if Oregon signs Dallas Wilson, whatever the secret recipe was for having a player committed on the other side of the country for 2 years, and he took just 3 visits, and he's
Steve, how many visit lists was Dallas Wilson on heading into the weekend this year?
Well, he was on a lot of them. Every week he was on one of them. And he only visited Florida the one time for the win over LSU, right?
Incredible.
So, right. But I'm not going to celebrate it for Oregon until he signs his paper.
Right. Until it crosses the finish line. Yeah.
We've just covered recruiting too long, but it's like, man, they've done a good job of holding it down. Obviously, they got Naeem offered on campus. They tried to give him a lot to think about on an official visit. Jamie French, Myron Charles, those are major targets for them down the stretch, and it's hard to bet against them. I'm not saying all these guys are going to flip, man, but they've gone out and flipped good players from good schools here at the end. All these recruits love Billy Napier, love the staff. They just weren't sure if they were going to be around. Could Florida even have a surprise or two next year on the trail? Guys we're not even talking about, but guys that had visited multiple times in the past, I wouldn't put it past them. They're going to be fun to follow down the stretch. They're going into the postseason on a 3-game winning streak. They're similar to Michigan, right? In the sense that they have the support of the school, support in the infrastructure standpoint, resources, and now there's momentum, and their staff does a good job of recruiting and building real relationships with kids too.
I also think the confidence in the quarterback, right? I think that goes a long way. I think recruits understand these days there's not a whole lot that you can count on, except when you have a great quarterback in place. You can kind of say, okay, he's going to definitely be there for another year or two. And I kind of feel like the catalyst for both UF and Michigan getting hot was, UF a little different. It was DJ Lagway starting and getting implemented into the game plan once Graham Mertz went down. And Michigan a little different. I mean, it was getting Bryce Underwood, but guys want to play alongside a great quarterback. And I think that's why you're seeing Jamie French and Dallas Wilson and even like a Solomon Thomas who plays offensive line. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of this buzz is created by DJ Lagway.
Yeah, obviously, when you have that franchise piece, the reigning Gatorade National Player of the Year, that's someone that the Florida coaching staff can point to, but also someone the recruits can see themselves and say, look, they can win a lot of games with guys like that. DJ Lagway is the most impactful recruit that Florida's got landed since Tim Tebow. I mean, he's got a chance to get them back to that stage in college football with his talent and just who he is as a leader and a person. So he's guys that people like being around, gravitate to. And when they're on campus, Will Griffin talked about spending the whole day with DJ Lagway, their 2026 quarterback commit back during his process. So he's approachable. He's helping land players. He's shown flashes in his true freshman season that he can be a big-time player. He's had some big-time performances, and certainly a guy you can build around and why people have faith in him and the Florida program.
Yeah. I remember covering Tim Tebow. I was at the Nice State Finals game when Tim Tebow was a senior in high school. So it's been a while since they've really had a signal caller in place that rallies the troops that way. And you're right. DJ Lagway seems like he can do that. We'll see what happens tonight. It looks like Florida is going to beat Florida State and going to impress some of these recruits. So Florida Gator fans, get in the chat. Talk to us about this top 20 class. Is it going to finish top 15? Could it finish top 10? I mean, there's a path for that to happen, but do you think it will? Let me know. Comment section below. All right. Let's get to this USC Notre Dame game. Let's talk a little USC recruiting first. Madden Ferramo visited USC this weekend. We were expecting maybe defensive lineman Jakeem Stewart, but it doesn't look like it made it in. Who are some of the big names you're tracking out in LA this weekend?
Well, the Trojans have Christian Ingram on campus this weekend. He's a defensive lineman from the state of Georgia that I currently have predicted to South Carolina on the On3 RPM. We'll see if USC can change that recruitment. He was supposed to visit Vanderbilt this weekend. Now he's at USC. He's a guy that Coach Henderson and Coach Riley and company really want to sign. Obviously, Jakeem Stewart, the On3 RPM was logged this week in favor of USC. LSU making one final late push to change that narrative. We've seen LSU rally with 5 stars this cycle in DJ Pickett. Can they do it with Jakeem Stewart? He visited on Wednesday. We'll see. But the intel really favored USC coming into the week. USC, man, they flipped Tucson Longstreet on November 17th. That was as big a recruiting win as just about any program outside of Michigan winning Bryce Underwood had this cycle. They're battling Notre Dame for Madden Ferramo. So even though the Irish get a win on the field, does Madden Ferramo want to come in and help USC reinvent itself as a program under this new defensive staff? It's closer to home. He's been to a couple games this year, but he's been to Notre Dame a couple times this year. That's where the On3 RPM is right now, top of the board target for the Irish. Obviously, a lot of 2026s on campus, guys like RJ Sermons. I have an On3 RPM in favor of USC for the #1 corner in the country in 2026. I love that pick. You know, they're battling for Toby Haystrip. He's a 4-star edge rusher. But USC, it's been a season outside of this. This was the only game that they didn't have a lead in the fourth quarter, believe it or not. So they were 6-6, but they led in the fourth quarter of 11 of their 12 games. They had chances against this Notre Dame team that was really hot. So I think if you were someone that paid close attention to USC, you could see that they showed improvement this year. And landing a guy like Hussam Longstreet, someone you can build around, and this is a good class, brand new defensive staff that I think had them playing a lot harder this year. I'm still optimistic on USC. I'm still high on their trajectory.
All right, 9 decommitments from the 2025 class with Jerome Miles visiting A&M this weekend. We'll see what happens. Do you think? I mean, what does USC need to do to hold on to a guy like a Jerome Miles?
Well, obviously, a lot of resources in some of these recruitments, and I think that's one of the reasons why they were able to get Jerome Miles. But now kids are having final conversations and dotting I's and crossing T's, and this is his second visit to A&M, and there's some excitement around the Aggies, and there's even some sources that think he could flip to the Aggies. So we'll see what happens, because there's some USC sources that feel like they're good there, but certainly he's back at A&M this weekend, so you got to have your antenna up at the very least.
All right, USC fans, talk to us. This has been a wild recruiting class. Some of the highs, some of the lows, but they could finish strong. You got Jakeem Stewart, 5-star defensive lineman, trending that way. Can they keep Jerome Miles? Talk to us, Trojan fans. Comment section below. All right, Steve, Notre Dame, they put a number on USC today. They won in convincing manner on the road. How are you feeling about Notre Dame recruiting heading in this stretch?
Well, Madden Ferramo's target numero uno, top 100 linebacker from California that's been on campus numerous times, including his official visit in the summer. 2 games this fall, was there for the wins over to Louisville and Florida State. The Irish have looked like the team to beat, but USC is the program that they have to hold off down the stretch. And does he want to play closer to home? Does he believe in the direction of the Trojans program? Certainly he's got a lot of belief at Notre Dame, fits in with that roster, locker room, loves where they're at as a program. Obviously, Jalen Wiggins is a defensive lineman that they've been trying to flip from Florida. That might be some tough sledding. Derek Meadows is a receiver they've been trying to flip from LSU. There's been more momentum around Alabama and Michigan as of late. So not sure that they're in those sweepstakes anymore. Do they want another receiver? I think they do. Who is it? There's maybe another name emerges. for them down the stretch. But Madden Faramo is the guy that Notre Dame would love to add to this class, one that's loaded on the defensive side, particularly in the secondary. Dallas Golden's a guy I would give a look on offense too. He's been super during his prep career for Berkeley Prep. But Notre Dame recruiting to a level that should keep them winning games like this for years to come. The CJ Carr era is coming for the Irish, the young quarterback. So I don't think Notre Dame has to go into the portal this year. And they've spent a lot of money in the portal the last 2 years. Riley Leonard and Sam Hartman did not come to South Bend cheap. Those are some resources that could really help Notre Dame be pretty strong in this portal season, not having to put that money into the quarterback position, but into some other positions as they go out and try and land an elite player or two to keep this thing rolling next year. They're going to be in the playoff. They're going to get a home game in South Bend, Indiana on December 20th or the 21st. Touchdown Jesus will be looking down the Golden Dome. The Irish, you look at it, all the parity in college football this year, the way Notre Dame played the second half of the season, the way they were able to run the ball, play defense, they're going to be a fun team to watch in this college football playoff.
Yeah, Notre Dame fans got to be feeling good coming out of this one. Talk to us, comment section below. How good do you think this class will be when it's all said and done? Is it a top 10, top 5 class? Let us know, comment section below. All right, let's talk a little Ole Miss. Let's go talk a little Egg Bowl weekend. Now, the game is over. Ole Miss beats Mississippi State. It was a close one. It was a great game, and there were some big names on campus. You got 5-star wide receiver Caleb Cunningham cutting it up with Deuce Knight. The Auburn quarterback commit was back in Oxford. Steve, were you surprised to see Deuce Knight there, and what does it mean?
Not surprised. Still trying to figure out what it means, because depending on who you talk to around Auburn circles, you feel like he's solid. I mean, he was at Auburn's win over Texas A&M 2 Saturdays ago, and he basically said as much, talking about the next chapter.
Yeah.
6 short days later, he's in Ole Miss on campus, back around Lane Kiffin and the staff. He's been the 2 big Ole Miss wins this year. He was there when they beat Georgia, rushed the field. Now he was there for the Egg Bowl win. I think that Ole Miss is trying to make a late push there for him, and so my antenna's up on it. Obviously, he went to every Auburn home game. Maybe he missed one, but I think he went to them all. So great relationships there. He's got a chance to be the guy very early at Auburn. I think that's exciting to him. But obviously, he's keeping Ole Miss warm to a certain degree here at the end. And then, and look, Shakai Mills-Knight, their running back commit, he thinks they're going to get him. I mean, that's just a recruit and a peer. But Caleb Cunningham, he's on campus this weekend. He's got a relationship with Deuce Knight. He's trying to help recruit him. So we'll see.
Yeah, they're both from the state of Mississippi. We'll see, like you said. All right, moving on. Number 1 quarterback in the 2026 class, Jared Curtis, visited Ole Miss. Jared Curtis, I hung out with him a little bit here. He came in and did a interview in the studio. I could just see Jared Curtis and Lane Kiffin getting along, couldn't you?
Yeah, Jared Curtis is very chill. But that is a fit for him, and he certainly sees an opportunity to go in there and light it up. He said he loved it, great atmosphere, and loves the people there. He said Coach Kiffin's a great coach and leads the players by example, and it shows. Ole Miss is they're in the top 5. I mean, you got Alabama, you got Ohio State, you got Oregon, and you got Georgia. I might even put them in the top 3. In that group right now. He's at Alabama today for the Iron Bowl. So he hit 2 big rivalry games. He's playing in the state championship next year, but very excited about Ole Miss. He's going to take some more visits in the spring, take some officials in the summer before deciding. So I would expect him back at Ole Miss.
All right. Anything else impress you from the weekend at Ole Miss?
Yeah. Ole Miss hosting some top targets here down the stretch of this process. You got Racine Guillory, a 4-star running back from Aledo. He is on an official visit to Ole Miss this weekend. He's starting to trend on the on-3 RPM. Connor Howes is a 4-star offensive lineman from Florida that's currently committed to Arkansas, that's on an official visit to Ole Miss this weekend. He's the number 14 offensive tackle in the on-3 player rankings. So Ole Miss, they got a top 20 class right now, currently sitting at number 17. They could maybe push into the top 15 with some of the big names that are still on the board for them as they look to sneak into the college football playoff themselves here.
Yeah, could be really interesting. Now, Ole Miss, they love this type of year. Lane Kiffin gets into his bag in flip season. So, Ole Miss fans, talk to us. What's going to go down with Deuce Knight? What do you guys think? Was it just for a good game, or is something more brewing? Let us know in the comment section below. All right, we got to talk some Colorado Buffaloes because they got busy on Thanksgiving night. Now, I was sleeping, but in the middle of the night, Carde Smith, London Merritt, Alexander McPherson, Quentin Gibson, they all committed to the Buffs. Steve, you told me all week that these names were trending in the Colorado Buffs direction, but for it all to go down on one night, that's a great Thanksgiving for Buffalo fans.
Yeah, Colorado up to number 29 in the
Wow.
player rankings after going on that run and landing those guys. Look, we talked about every one of those guys on the Wiltfong Whip Around on Thursday, so make sure you're hitting a like and subscribe for all the latest, best information on the recruiting trail. Carde Smith, huge win. He's someone that's 6'6.5", 295 pounds. He's ranked in the top 150 of the On3 player rankings. He's a plug-and-play guy for Colorado. They want to put on the opposite side of Jordan Seaton. London Merritt basically flips from Ohio State, a 6'2", 255-pound defensive end that's going to play right away at Colorado as well. His teammate Alexander McPherson, was committed to Oklahoma State. He's led IMG in sacks each of the last 2 seasons. He's coming to Colorado. They got some playmakers in this class, and they're going to need them. Losing Travis Hunter at the end of the year, Adrian Wilson, Quanell Farrakhan, Quentin Gibson, 3 Texas receivers, 3 playmakers, 3 guys that have big senior seasons coming into the program to add a little bit of juice to that offense. So this Colorado class coming together for them. Still, they got a couple more targets out there as they do some work. Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, they're in the top 2-4 with Michigan. He sees an opportunity to play right away. He visited twice this fall. Everything I'm hearing, Michael Carroll has given the guys around Alabama the vote of confidence that he's sticking after taking an official visit to Colorado. But the Buffaloes, they would love to add Michael Carroll as well.
What about a guy like DB Zealous Hicks? He's committed to Texas, right? But he's saying that, he's interested in Colorado, might take a visit there, and he happens to be teammates with Julian Lewis.
Right. A reclassification from 2026 to 2025. We'll see how that works. Yeah, we'll see if Colorado's got another big one up their sleeve or not. But top 30 recruiting class, chance to win their 10th game. We talked about this on Whip Around, and Deion Sanders talked about it then afterwards. Like, program culture is so important to him. And we see teams at the end of the year, and I don't judge anyone. I don't think anyone judges when players opt out and don't play in postseason games. But I still say the programs where your best players play in your postseason game, there's levels. And if your program does that, you're at peak level culture. So when Georgia and Alabama don't make the college football playoff, their best players still were playing in those Peach Bowls and in those New Year's Six games, even though that was the last place they wanted to be that day, that time of year. And Deion Sanders, his star players are going to play in their bowl game. They're going to try and win 10 games. And he pointed towards Florida State and programs where that didn't happen. And it doesn't set you up for the greatest offseason sometimes. And they want to go out there. They want to get that 10th win. They just blew out Oklahoma State, beat them by over half a hundred. And they want to win that 10th bowl game, have fun together. They got some momentum here at the end of the season. They want that to carry over into bowl practice, into the off-season winter conditioning. And when your best players play, it sets the tone for the young players. And that's what the recruits see and their families. And they see that brotherhood, and it resonates with them when they come on campus, and they know it's not BS. And so Colorado, that culture is really locked in right now. And it's exciting to know that we are going to see the Heisman Trophy winner, Travis Hunter, play one more game. Is the Davey O'Brien the number 1 quarterback award, or is there another one? Shedeur got a great chance to win that award. Is it the Unitas? Davey O'Brien could win them both. Those are both awards, right?
They're going to take home a lot of hardware. Whatever is given out they're going to take home a lot of it. And Steve, the haters, let's address the haters. The haters will say,
haters, but they don't have any anymore.
What's that?
They don't have many haters anymore. In fact, Colorado fans have had a hard time dealing with the fact that they don't have any haters.
Like, I see a lot of people
making not around, man. It's crickets, like, because people either changed their tune on them or they just kind of went away, right?
Oh no. You don't have the same Twitter algorithm that I have. I see a lot of people still saying that Colorado doesn't play anybody. Oh, well, once Coach Prime doesn't have Travis and Shedeur, it's all going to fall apart. Well, it's clearly not, because Coach Prime is planning for the future. So the 2026 recruits, I think this is very telling. You heard from some major 2026 names, and it sounds like Colorado is fully involved with 2026. Now, if Coach Prime was leaving, why would they care about 2026 class?
Yeah, they had a couple offensive linemen on campus this week for this win over Oklahoma. I talked to Brett Collegier. He's from IMG Academy as well, 4-star recruit, been to places like Georgia and Tennessee, Ohio State this fall. Colorado is one of his favorites right now. He also went to practice Monday and Tuesday, then returned for the game on Friday. 4-star 2026 offensive tackle Deacon Schmidt. Breck's also from Colorado. So is Deacon Schmidt. I think Colorado's maybe the early favorite for Deacon Schmidt as well. He had a great visit. They just love that environment at Boulder. I mean, the Colorado fans show up, and certainly just the ambiance of a Colorado football game. But those are two guys I could see in Colorado's class in 2026. They're very deliberate on who they recruit. Again, they want instant impact guys, and so they don't cast as wide a net as some other programs, but generally the guys they zero in on, if they come and take an official visit to Colorado, their hit rate is pretty high. And I think it's because they just love being around the players and around the coaches and around the team. And they're in the locker room after a win. They're nothing like a locker room after a Colorado win. It's an absolute
nothing like it.
No, but the players love playing there, and it's resonating with the recruits.
All right. Now we know that Colorado already has a great class, but Colorado fans, how you feeling? You got to be feeling great, not only about the transfer portal getting ready to open up, but also signing day is in just 3 or 4 days. Do you think there'll be some more fireworks? Talk to us in the comment section below about guys like Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, Michael Carroll, even a guy like Zealous Hicks. Who do you think Colorado is going to finish with? Let us know in the comment section below. All right, Steve. Week 13.
We did it, man. We did it. Thanks for tuning into the Recruit Reaction Show all year. Look forward to coming back next season with the Recruit Reaction Show.
We're going to do a live signing day show. You guys, if you're not subscribed, make sure you hit subscribe. Steve, are you coming to Nashville on Wednesday for our National Signing Day extravaganza?
I'll be at the On3 World headquarters.
All right, we'll see you here. And we will see you guys here. Like I said, hit subscribe, because we're going to be talking about all of this throughout the week, through signing day, even after signing day. Look, the On3 Recruits channel is about recruiting. If it gets recruited, we're covering it. So whether it's transfer portal, high school football, whatever, if it involves recruiting, it's here. On3 Recruits channel. Hit subscribe, and we will see you guys Sunday.